Warm enough for you?
Yes,
sir! Good. So, my great honour this afternoon to introduce you to Colonel Rick Harney, Director of the Army Heritage Education Centre, who was very generous and very kind in hosting Captain Birch and myself just a few weeks ago and letting us have free access to the centre, and indeed opened up the archives and the library to ourselves and cadets here. And we'll certainly be taking advantage on the Perspective on Military History lecture series from this point forward. So on a personal level and on behalf of the Corps Cadets, thank you for that hospitality. Colonel Harney assumed duties as the Director of the US Army Heritage and Education Centre on July the 7th, 2014. Prior to his arrival at Carlisle Barracks, he was assigned as the Commandant and Military Deputy, Army Logistics University, US Army Combined Arms Support Command, Fort Lee, Virginia. Colonel Harney enlisted in the US Army in August 1978. In August 1987, he received his commission as a Field Artillery Lieutenant and Distinguished Military Graduate of the U.S. Army Officer Candidate School, Fort Benning, Georgia. Colonel Harney has served in a variety of command and staff positions. His most recent assignment include Assistant Commandant-in-Chief, Office of the Quartermaster General, U.S. Army Quartermaster School, Fort Lee, Virginia, and Commander Defense Distribution Center, Anniston, Defense Logistics Agency Distribution, Anniston, Army Depot, Alabama. Colonel Harney's earlier assignments include Chief Logistics Exercises Branch, Joint Logistics Planner, and Logistics Automation Officer, Director of Logistics, Engineering Security Assistance, J4 U.S. Pacific Command, Camp HM Smith, Hawaii. I always want to go to Hawaii, and his awards are commensurate with his experience. From a personal perspective, I appreciate him being an airborne soldier as well. Decorations include Legion of Merit, Defense Meritorious Service Medal, 2 Oak Leaves clusters, Army Meritorious Service Medal with Silver Oak Leaves cluster, Joint Service Commendation Medal, Army Commendation Medal with 3 Oak Leaf clusters, Joint Service Achievement Medal with 2 Oak Leaf clusters. The list goes on. What I can say to you all, it is a great honour and privilege, and we are thankful that Colonel Harney has given up his time to talk to us about leadership. This is a lecture series that happens on a monthly basis, and we are privileged to have such distinguished guests and presenters. I know that you will comport yourselves properly, and on behalf of the Corps Cadets, thank you for being here.
Good afternoon, cadets. You guys are motivated this afternoon. That sounds pretty good. From my previous assignments, I had the opportunity to train and educate brand new lieutenants coming out of college, and also as the assistant commandant of the quartermaster school, I had the opportunity to train brand new enlisted into different supply and service distribution MOSs that the Army has to offer. So what I want to hear from you when I count to 3 is a great big hula. So can we do that? Yes. All right. So 1, 2, 3. That's what I'm talking about. And what I'm going to do for the next few minutes or so is I want to talk to you about how the Army develops leaders. There's a method to the madness on how the Army does it, and hopefully you all will benefit from what I'm about to show you. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to end it with some nuggets of information, some key tidbits that I want to impart upon you as you think about life after Carson Long. Whether it's entering the military, whether it's going to college, or whether it's entering the workforce right after this. So, does that sound fair? Now, what I want to do is offer any questions that you you may have about anything. As Mr. Pearson said, I'm the director of the U.S. Army Heritage and Education Center in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And what we do is we collect soldier stories of historical presidents, and we tell the Army story one soldier at a time. And I'm excited to be a part of that and to impart information on to you all as well. Let me see if this thing's working. I'll do it this way. Okay, I'm going to talk to you about the Army Leader Development Strategy. The past 13 years that the Army has been at war, what has happened is the Army has developed leaders, whether they're enlisted, warrant officers, or officers, that are very tactical focused. And for those of you who don't know, there's 3 levels of operations. There's tactical, there's operational, and there's strategic. Strategic level operations are those at the Department of Defense level and higher. Your operational forces are those elements like your combatant commanders or your 3 and 4-star generals who command those operational elements. And then the tactical are your brigade size units that go out there and close on the enemy. The challenge with being tactical focused is that as you gain rank and you go higher in rank, you have to be able to understand strategy and the strategic environment that you're operating in and how it influences tactical operations. So the Army said we've got to develop leaders at an early age to where they are exposed to the operational strategic environment early on so that they can be able to function properly and support the warfighter at the tip of the spear. So the Army Leader Development Strategy was born out of that. And what I want you all to understand about the Army Leader Development Strategy is it's based upon 3 areas, or what we call lines of effort. First and foremost is training. Second is education. And third is experience. Now there's a difference between training and education that I want to spell out to you. Training are the things that you have to do, like in my instance, as a logistician, as an airborne soldier. I've got to know how to be able to pack my chute because I'm a parachute rigger. I have that specialty, so I know how to pack a chute. I've also have to be know the steps associated with packing that parachute, so that whoever jumps out of a perfectly good airplane will jump out of it safely, and that parachute will deploy. So there are steps, and I'm trained on how to do that step by step. That's what to think. And same with battle drills, how you react to ambushes, whether it's mounted or dismounted, those type of things. Those are training, task and battle drills, how to think. Education, on the other hand, is, well, correction, what to think is training. How to think is the educational piece. And that's being able to think critically And I know that that's something that's instilled to you here at Carson Long about critical thinking, being able to sort through things when you're unclear about what to do. So that's the purpose of military education. And then you combine that training and education in your units or your different jobs and whatnot, and that's where you gain the experience. So those three areas or lines of effort, as the Army called them, are the basis for the Army Leader Development Strategy. Now this is a busy slide. I'm going to break it down for you. But this is, as a logistician, how we build leaders. And we build them from an officer, non-commissioned officer, warrant officer, and yes, civilian perspective. And from the time that they're initially commissioned, enlisted, appointed, into the various elements to the time that they're senior leaders. And in my capacity as a commandant and military deputy of Army Logistics University, I led the efforts to develop what's called a logistics leader development strategy that complements the Army Leader Development Strategy. And that's the perspective that I'm going to brief you on today. And even though this is logistics-based, the same principles apply whether or not you're an infantryman or artilleryman or whatever specialty that the Army has to offer. First I'm going to talk about is officer training and education. The Army has a roadmap that tells you what a person needs to do to be successful from a lieutenant all the way up to colonel to prepare them for general officership. Now that training starts here at Carson Long, and it continues on through the pre-commissioner process, whether those of you go into ROTC or one of the service academies or OCS, Officer Candidate Schools in the case of myself. It begins with the pre-commissioning process. And the idea is that you have to meet certain requirements in order to get promoted to the next higher rank. And along with that, you gain experience from the tactical all the way to the strategic level to prepare yourself to be a senior leader in the Army. So what this slide represents are the three areas of which you get that training, education, and experience. First is the operational level. And those are the jobs that you must have or should have in order to get promoted to the next level. As you can see, as a lieutenant, your first job is going to be a platoon leader or XO in a company. In order to afford you to get the tactical experience that you need to be successful as a company commander or as a company grade officer. And that's followed on by different other tactical assignments, whether it's command or whether it's staff. And in between those different gates, in order to get promoted to the next rank, you have to complete different schooling, which leads me to the institutional aspect of this chart. As a newly commissioned lieutenant, the first training and education you receive is through your basic officer leadership course. And that's based upon the selection that you have, that you get in terms of branch. And that's anywhere from 12 weeks to 17, 18 weeks, depending on what specialty that you're branched in. About 3 to 5 years after that, when you are promoted to captain, you'll go to a captain career course. And that focuses on, again, tactical level leadership from a brigade level and below, with the focus being on company command and staff. And as you progress in rank, the more strategic focused your thought gets to be in terms of critical thinking, and the less tactical thought that you get. Plus, the less training that you get, the more education that you receive. Then about the 10-year mark, you'll go off to Command and General Staff College for 1 year, where you have the opportunity of you're learning to be a brigade staff member or division staff member. Again, more of an operational focus. And operational is bridging the gap between the strategic leadership and the tactical operations. And that's basically boots on the ground combat operations. From there, you'll move into battalion command, senior service college, which the War College at Carlisle Barracks does, which focuses on strategic thought, strategic leadership. And self-development, which is the bottom one of the slide here, you have numerous opportunities to self-develop yourself, whether that's in the Army through getting a graduate level degree, both on your time and on your expense, or if you're doing extremely well, the Army will pay for that. And the skies are the limit in terms of self-development. It's according to what you want to do. And I'll talk about what you want to do in subsequent slides. Now, some of you may aspire to go straight into the enlisted ranks, as I did coming out of high school. I will tell you, I was a football player in high school in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I thought I was good enough to get a scholarship. Didn't get it. And my grades weren't good enough at that point in juncture. So rather than have my parents pay for college, I decided to enlist in the Army. So after you graduate from high school, 8 to 10 weeks basic training, and then you go to your specialty of choice. And like a commissioned officer, non-commissioned officers have certain schools that they have to complete in certain jobs. Like a squad leader, platoon sergeant, first sergeant, sergeant major. Likewise, in order to get to that rank, you have to get certain schools done within certain periods. Warrior Leader Course, that's your first leadership course that you'll get to that prepares you to be a sergeant. Then followed by different other schools leading up to Command Sergeant Major's Academy, a year-long school. And in terms of self-development, majority of enlisted take advantage of school. And a lot of enlisted soldiers have bachelor's degrees and master's degrees, competitive to those of their officer counterparts. And again, the sky's the limits in terms of how you develop yourself. On warrant officers is the technical aspects of the Army. The technicians of the Army, they bridge the gap between the officers who are general leaders, have familiarity with a certain area, and the NCOs who are the backbone of the Army. They are the technicians that bridge that gap. And roughly between the 5 and 10 year mark, if you are highly competent within your enlisted area of expertise, then the Army wants you as a warrant officer. And some of the greatest soldiers that I've worked for have been warrant officers, because they keep you out of trouble. Let me tell you. But again, certain experience that they have to have, certain military schools that they have to have, and the self-development, the skies are the limits for what they need to do, both from a technical and from an academic perspective. Now, some of you may aspire to be Department of Army civilians coming out of high school, and that's a good thing. The average workforce age of a Department of Army civilian right now is about 48 to 50 years old, and about to retire. And the Army is always looking for highly qualified individuals to join the civilian ranks. And there are a number of ways to do that, interns, whatnot. And like the military counterparts, there are avenues to get your master's, your college education through tuition assistance. There are certain professional development, self-development courses that they go through. You know, for example, I had interns, civilian interns, going to the basic officer leadership courses with their military counterparts at the War College. And you'll have civilians in there, because what you'll find in the military is that a lot of times you'll find yourself working for high-level civilians. And who knows, that could be one of you. This is my last slide, and I want to open it up for questions. I want to leave you all with a few thoughts that I've shared through my 37 years of active duty service in total. The first one is live the Army values. We are a values-based organization. And I see back here the Army values. Carson is a values-based organization. That is very key. What you need to understand is that less than 1% of the United States population serves in the military. And of that less than 1%, we happen to be one of the most admired professions in this country. And the reason that we're so admired is because we are a values-based organization. And it's incumbent upon you all to live those values 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Likewise, remember, we are professional. We are a profession. And again, a most admired profession. And conduct is a key to maintaining that most admired thought process amongst the U.S. population. Third bullet, don't get stuck on stupid. And that is a term that was endeared by a lieutenant general during Hurricane Katrina and Rita operations a few years back. And I equate stuck on stupid to what I consider 4 B's. And I'm going to talk to you about it from a military perspective. The first B is booze and drugs. I will tell you that most incidents within the military surround alcohol and drugs. And a driving under the influence is a career ender in the military. It is a career ender, no matter how well you're doing. So, again, abstain from drugs and alcohol. The second is bad behavior. And I'm going to qualify the bad behavior piece. The Army has been fighting a sexual assault, sexual harassment image over the past 3 to 4 years, and has taken a lot of steps to combat that. And what I will tell you is that in today's culture, your counterparts in public schools, having witnessed this very much as an assistant commandant of the quartermaster's training, we have a lot of individuals where inappropriate behavior, sexual or otherwise, is commonplace. Whereas our standards and our culture and our values are such that such bad behavior is not an option. And it harms the image of this profession that we call the arms. So again, proper conduct is key. The third B is balance. And what I mean, everybody knows, you guys aren't old enough to vote yet, but a voting balance, and that's what we call playing politics. And there's a saying in the Army, it's called Spotlight Ranger. And that term means putting yourself on a pedestal above your peers. And not being a team player when it comes to getting the job done. A spotlight ranger. Not a spring butt, but a spotlight ranger. We are a team-oriented organization, and there's no I in team. So you have to do things together in order to accomplish the mission. You have to rely upon your buddy to your left and right, your unit to your left and right in order to accomplish the mission. No I in team. And the last B is bucks. It means money. Whether you're enlisted or you're an officer or you're a warrant officer or you're a civilian, you're going to be in charge of millions, in some cases billions of dollars of equipment. In some cases, you're going to be in charge of a large amount of money. And you have to be what we call stewards of your resources. I know you all read the newspapers or on the internet, and you know what's going on in terms of budgetary, of the U.S. budget, and how the military dollars that we once had 5-10 years ago is really shrinking due to a term called sequestration. It's very important that you use the taxpayers' dollars wisely. So again, being proper stewards of the resources that you're entrusted with. I will tell you that in corporate America, when a hired agent looks at a resume and he sees a person that's in charge of $2 or $3 million worth of equipment at age 20, they question that, but that's a fact. Next one is make goals for yourself. A lot of you are contemplating whether you're going to go to college, whether you're going to enlist, whether you're going to enter the civilian workforce or whatnot. I tell them, figuring out what you want to be when you grow up. I'm still trying to figure that out. And what I will tell you is make goals for yourself. Think about where you see yourself. Look at your strengths and weaknesses. Take a look at what interests you. I was at West Point about 5 years ago talking about the logistics branch. And you can see the mindset of cadets there to where they actually enjoy logistics, but the culture is such that combat arms is the way to go. And unfortunately, about 5 years down the road, 80 to 90% of the West Point cadets decide to leave the service because they're disenchanted with what they are. So I say that from the standpoint of find out what your interests are and move forward with that, making goals for yourself. Which leads me to the second to last bullet. Life is 10% of what happens to you, 90% of how you react to it. This is where critical thinking comes into play. Each one of you are going to be, if not yet, are going to be given different situations where you're going to have to react to it. And you have a choice of whether reacting to it negatively or positively. So you really have to learn how to think through different situations, determine possible outcomes of that situation, and choose the best. Seek out mentors, coaches and mentors to assist you with different areas if you're really having a hard time thinking through situations. And I will tell you, even at this day and age, I have a few mentors that I can call upon at a moment's notice if I have some issues or I need some advice. And you'll really be surprised where mentors come from. Your mentors can be your buddies to your left and your right. Cadet Wood here could be my mentor. What do you think about that? You be my mentor? Sure. You'd really be surprised. So again, seek mentors to make those right decisions and think critically through situations. And finally, always remember that you all are our most valuable resources. You are. You're the next generation that's going to not only lead the military, but you're going to make a difference in society as a whole. And that's extremely important. So what you get here at Carson long in terms of education, in terms of critical thought, in terms of everything, way of life, social skills, whatnot, take advantage of it and be the best citizen that you can be, because we need you out there to make a difference. And that's all I have. What are your questions?
So then we'll tell you, where do you think the U.S. military is going to be most involved in the coming years?
The question was where I think the U.S. military is going to be most involved with in the upcoming years. That's a great question. And all you have to do is look at the world events to understand. What the Chief of Staff of the Army would tell you in terms of where the next conflict will be, he doesn't know. because the focus in terms of realignment and emphasis a couple of years ago was on China, North Korea. But as you see what's happening in the Middle East with ISIS and what we call hybrid organizations, terrorist organizations that have a military and non-conventional warfare type environment using social media to politicize its goals and objectives, it's unknown. So we as a military in this day and age are planning for what we call a full spectrum of operations for anything from all-out war, that means force on force, tanks, firing off rounds, artillery, to humanitarian assistance operations. And as a military, we have to be prepared to execute all those different types of operations. And that's very difficult given the constrained resources that we're involved, that we have to operate under this day and age. And the leadership, the strategic leadership of the Army and Department of Defense have to make some very tough decisions on whether or not we modernize, whether or not we downsize, which we're doing that, and whether we train. Something's got to give. So the leadership continues to work through that, and we as soldiers in the United States Army are prepared to do whatever the senior leaders of this country ask us to do. Does that answer your question? No?
Sir, General Taddy, I was asking like which parts of the room.
Okay, got it. Thank you. I gave you a little bit more than what you asked for. China, Middle East. You have to be concerned about the drug flow that's coming through South America. The other thing is lone terrorists that are operating within the United States. So those areas are the key areas at this point. The other one that the Army's putting emphasis on is Africa, because a lot of Al-Qaeda, other terrorist groups are migrating from the Middle East into Africa because of the unstableness of a lot of the countries there. And there's a new emphasis to help the countries in Africa help themselves. Did I get it right that time?
Sir, Bidlaw, since you started off as an enlisted, did you say you regret that decision, or do you think it made you a better leader in the long run after going to OCS?
The question is, since I started off as enlisted, do I regret starting off as enlisted and then becoming an officer? By all means, no. My goal was originally to do 3 years and get out and go to college. I got married, so I had a baby. That changed everything. But I continued to self-develop, going to college, getting military schools, up to the point where I was able to apply for officer candidate school. And I got it. What I will tell you is that it gave me a great appreciation for what soldiers do. Not that I'm going to do their job or that I did their job as a commissioned officer, but I understood in every sense of the way what it means to be a soldier. And more importantly, the impacts that leader decisions has on that soldier. If you don't, sometimes if a leader makes a decision, they don't understand the impacts, then you stand a chance of hurting or possibly killing someone. So I don't regret that one bit. It made me a better, much better officer. But I will also tell you that it took me a while to get out of the soldier mode. And I had a great First Sergeant Simons was his name, when I was a first lieutenant. One of the things that other NCOs told me when I became an officer was, don't forget where you came from. And I thought, wow, you know, if I have an opportunity as a field artillery lieutenant to go down and clean off the howitzers or the vehicles, then I'd get down there with them. And the non-commissioned officers and soldiers hated that with a passion. That was their business. Officers go do what officers do. Non-commissioned officers and soldiers take care of their business. And that first sergeant realized that about me, and every time he saw me get what he thought was micromanagement, but me just trying to help out, he literally said, "Sir, this is what an officer does. This is what an NCO does." And I get it, we go do the officer business, and I do it again. After the third time, it clicked, and I had it. So, but bottom line is it helped me out, and I would in no way change that. Besides, the soldiers know, and they appreciated that, and had a great deal of respect for me.
Yes, Colonel. One of the things I'm noticing is sometimes young folks are a little bit naive when it comes to how long it might take them to get a degree when they do enlist in the military. They don't understand operational commitments and deployments, et cetera. So can you shed some reality to that?
Yes, excellent question. Like I said, as I came into the Army right out of high school in 1978, I date myself, I got my associate's degree 4 years later, and I didn't get my bachelor's degree until 1992. And that was going to class after duty. In addition to that, I was raising a family. It takes time, and it takes commitment, and it takes persistence. This day and age, and I will also tell you that I was going through, I would go on exercises with my units, and I'd have my books there, and I had great NCOs and officers that allowed me to come back in if I could, to go to the classes, but I'd go back out. And there are some times where I was, particularly my economics classes, where I had a red flashlight and I was studying at 2 o'clock in the morning just to get it done. And you know, there are trade-offs, but it takes hard work and persistence. That addresses it. What other questions about anything?
Sir, Cadet Romberger, you emphasized teamwork during your speech. What was the time that you most needed teamwork behind you?
That's a hard question because every job that I've had required teamwork. The only time I didn't require teamwork was when I was a young enlisted, and I was a legal specialist as enlisted. And I spent all my days typing charge sheets for court martials. That's all I did. And then it had to be, couldn't make any mistakes on those court martial charge sheets. So if I did, I had to start all over again. It was a manual typewriter. It wasn't no word processor like or word processor. I'm even dating myself. You know, computer or laptop or MacBook like you guys have this day and age. So it's a little different. From a lieutenant, and when I was as an artillery lieutenant, it takes teamwork to set up and in place a howitzer. And I was on light artillery pieces. So that's a six-man crew. Takes teamwork. As a company commander in the 82nd Airborne Division, I commanded the parachute rigger company in the 82nd. It took teamwork to pack a parachute and to rig what we call heavy drop loads, whether it was a Humvee or bundles. It took teamwork to pack those. It took teamwork of platoon leaders and non-commissioned officers to ensure that we were moving in the right direction. As a battalion commander, the same thing. As a brigade level commander, the same thing. Teamwork is key. Yes, there are times where individuals are going to step forward and take the initiative on things, but when the dust settles, it's all about teamwork. You can't do it on your own. Fire maneuver. When you maneuver, you're going to have someone covering your six. Teamwork. It's not individual. So I want to emphasize that very, very much.
Sir, Cadet White, we all understand that there's a level of professionalism surrounding the Army, but I want to know what was hands down the funniest moment in your entire career?
The funniest moment?
Yes, sir.
That's the first. Normally I get the most difficult moment. The funniest moment. I got it. There's the current commander of the U.S. Central Command is General Lloyd Austin. And when I was a captain in the 82nd Airborne Division, he was a brigade commander, 3rd Brigade 82nd. So he was a full-bird colonel. And a couple of my parachute riggers that were packing parachutes, one played a practical joke on one to place a red hat. The parachute riggers wear a red hat to identify themselves on the airfield as such, assist with the technical aspects of shooting. But they took their hat off and put it in the chute to hide the hat of the individual that was packing the chute. So, lo and behold, that chute gets issued to Colonel, now General Lloyd Austin. And he stands in the door of the aircraft, goes out, opens up the chute. I love airborne, what can I say? And the hat comes out. So he notices the hat, he lands safely, grabs the hat, goes to my brigade commander and says, "Hey, this came out of my chute." So my brigade commander comes to me and it had the name of the individual on the back. And I went to go apologize to Colonel Austin. He just laughed it off. It was embarrassing. That was probably the funniest moment. You had a question.
Sir Beverly, I wanted to ask what your first time jumping out of American was.
The question was, what was the experience? My first time jumping out of an airplane. It was a March. It was about this time in March of 1988 at Fort Benning, Georgia, and you go through. If you're unfamiliar with airborne school, you go through what's called ground week, and you learn how to make a perfectly good parachute landing fall, as they call it. Second week is tower week, where they put you up in this 250-foot apparatus, and it takes you up to the top, releases you, and you go down. So the third, I was all excited. We finally get to jump week, and I'm up in the C-130 aircraft, about the fourth pass in, and I'm all shooted up, and I wasn't going. I was not. I'm not doing it. So first pass goes by, I'm not going to do it. Second pass goes by. I'm still not going to do it. Third pass comes by, and there was this 5 foot, barely 100-pound second lieutenant by the name of Tara Bonanno. Bonanno, that's her name. Not Banana, Bonanno. And they put her in the door. So in the door of the aircraft, you're standing like this for about 5 minutes, just waiting for the green light to come on, and there's nothing but air and the ground that you see, and the horizon out front. So she's standing there, and she goes out. So no offense, ladies, but I said, I cannot get outdone by a woman. I'm going to do this. So that green light came on, the fourth pass that I was in, and I went out and had a soft landing, and the rest is history. And believe it or not, I'm scared of heights. In a hotel, anything past the 6th floor, I'm no good. Grant on me or something. But yeah, then as luck would have it, when I did get assigned to the 82nd, and I'm still scared of heights, and they put me in the door the first go around. So I get to the door, and I'm scared, so I sit out there, and lo and behold, it was pretty good. You got the air that's hitting you on the face, and you see the horizon out there. And by the time, that was jump number 6. 4 years later, jump number 66, where I'm a jump master at that time, and I'm standing out there. And, you know, by that time I got cocky, and I'm just sitting out, just enjoying the breezes hitting my face. And, the green light comes on, and the assistant jump master taps me, and I'm about 10 seconds into the drop zone. So I landed in the trees. That wasn't good. I'm still afraid of heights, but that, and I have herniated disc to as a witness to my airborne time. But, it was good. Scary at first, but you get used to it. I have one jump that I did. There's a certain look on the jumper's face when they're going out the aircraft. Yeah, because you have to get in the zone. You have to psych yourself out to do it. And I was a jump master, which means I'm in charge of the jumpers that are going out the airplane. I had one individual that was at the back of the aircraft that was going out. And like I say, there's a certain look on your face when you're going out. This guy's like, "Hey, sir, this is cool stuff." He's going out the door. And I'm like, "Oh, Lord, he's going to do something to himself." So I looked out the aircraft. He went out okay. And when we got down to the drop zone and we assembled, "Dude, what was up with that?" I said, "Sir, it was a great day, and I was just enjoying the ride, sir." What other questions do you all have? Anybody got anything else?
Well, Harney, that was excellent. Thank you very much. If you think of any other questions, Harney's not very far away. Again, that was excellent. These leadership lectures are important because we hang our hat on leadership. And as Colonel Harney said, there's no I in team. If you want to go quickly, go on your own. If you want to go a long way, go with a team. And that's important. And we're a family. We look after each other. We always will. And we're very appreciative of anybody that helps us. Thank you, sir.